Hey everyone, welcome to the Roto Grinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevie TPFL. It's June 22nd. It's Wednesday. We have a 6-game early slate that we're going to focus on here. Dan DB730 is going to take the late slate on the Fantasy Fix podcast. So if you're tuning in to get information about that late slate, just switch on over to that podcast and Dan will take you home. And he's going to have a special announcement on the podcast today as well about a FanDuel single entry tournament. I don't even know about it. I'm excited to hear what it's going to be. As a single entry guy, that loves the single entry tournaments. I think I'm going to be really pumped about this. So I got special guests here today. Some know him as Cheese is Good. Some know him as Dave Potts. Cheese is Goat. There's a lot of nicknames for him, but everybody thinks he's a pretty good player. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Good to be talking to you today.
It's always fun to have you on, Dave. This is your second time coming on, and I like your insight. You have great insight, really understand the game of baseball. So I'm glad to have you on here today.
Absolutely.
We got 6 games, early slate on Fantasy Draft, our sponsor site. If you guys haven't checked them out, make sure you guys check them out. If you like the podcast and you like what we do here, every day during the week, make sure you guys sign up using promo code Grinders. I had a message today on Twitter. A guy, took down the tournament and won tickets here in the promo this past Friday. So, make sure you guys are just playing over there. It's a great site. First time playing on the site, that guy took down, some money and tickets to a baseball game. So check them out. They're, awesome sponsors of the podcast. They do promos with us all the time. So make sure you guys are checking them out. Dave, we got 6 games to talk about. And, we kind of chatted before we went live here. It's a good day for pitchers, but hitters are going to be, another story here today.
Yeah, there's really not a lot to get excited about on the hitter side. Almost every pitcher on the mound is, if not really good, at least respectable. There's just a couple of spots where you're going to see most of the ownership centered around the hitters.
Well, let's start with the first game here. We have Colorado at New York. Game that we, absolutely love targeting on Tuesday, but now coming to Wednesday, 1:00 game. Jon Gray, CC Sabathia. Sabathia seems like he's turning his season around. He's gotten sober. He's pitching well. And Jon Gray outside of Coors Field is an excellent pitcher. So what's your thoughts on these two guys?
Jon Gray's numbers are kind of tricky to figure. Something that kind of jumped out at me, and, we have to keep in mind, it really is a very small sample size with this guy still.
Yeah.
But, the strikeouts and walks are great. To both sides, any way you look at it. But he's giving up a lot of hard hits to lefties, like 40%, a dangerous amount. And it's not just at home. It's actually, if you look just through his game log of hard hits on the road, he's giving up a lot of hard hits. So that's just enough to make me lean, when we're really going to be just searching for any bats we can find, is probably going to put some Yankees lefties at least on the radar, because that does seem to be his weak spot if he has one. Even though I do really like him as a pitcher, that's 30+ innings against lefties, just getting hit hard pretty consistently. So guys like that outfield with Gardner and Beltran and Ellsbury, I think you can consider those plays. Brian McCann, catcher. That's the way I'm going to go if I'm looking. I'm definitely not going to be using Jon Gray in Yankee Stadium, and I think you can play against him a little bit.
Yeah, just touch on the numbers. 46% hard contact rate to lefties on the road. So let's take Coors Field out of it and look at his road numbers alone. It is a small sample size. It's 30 innings. But on a slate like this, we're going to look for any type of edge we're going to get, and targeting guys like Beltran and even Gardner, Ellsbury, he's day to day, but McCann, some of these power lefties against a guy that real neutral as far as fly balls and ground ball goes. Hard contact, Yankee Stadium lefties, a lot screams. I don't hate it. I'm not going to play Jon Gray as well.
Yeah, it's not a spot like on a full slate. You wouldn't be saying, "Oh, we got to play Yankees lefties," but they're definitely going to be in the equation today.
Yeah, it's a 6-game slate, so you're going to have to take some chances. There's not any, just absolute locks, and it's still early. We're recording the podcast the night before, but it's supposed to be 85 degrees at Yankee Stadium, and the wind's blowing out to right center right now. So if all that lines up, I like your call here. What's your thoughts here on CC Sabathia?
Boy, it's tough. Again, another guy that it's really tough to figure, but he looks – you just look at that game log and you can't really argue with it. Even the one game – he had the one real sketchy game at Baltimore where he walked 6 guys but still didn't allow a run. He hasn't allowed more than 2 runs in a game since April. You can't really fake that, even if luck is on your side. Like, he is going to see a big regression in the home run to fly ball rate. That's where a lot of his, good fortune has come in. But just considering where he was last year, I mean, we thought he might just be done. I don't think you can really use him as a pitcher, given what else we're going to have to talk about on this slate. But I'm certainly not excited about Rocky's bats outside of course, Arenado you can use against anyone. And Sabathia, despite what he's doing right now, it's a pretty long history of having some trouble with righties recently. So I'm not ready to say Sabathia is, some sort of ace all of a sudden, but I do think you need to say he's a good, solid pitcher that you're not going to be just loading up on like we were last year.
Yeah, even in his struggles over the last, year and a half, he was always good against lefties. And when we're looking at the Rockies lineup, Blackmon, Cargo, some of their best hitters on that left-hand side. So where, Arenado, like you mentioned, Trevor Story would be the only 2 guys, but I don't even know if I like them here. I think I'm going to respect the way that CC Sabathia has been pitching.
Yeah, I think I agree. Really, the only play would be if I haven't dug into those prices. Like today, yesterday on FanDuel, Story was so cheap. I think he's 3,000. So maybe you can make a case for Story, but pretty much I think you just sort of avoid both Sabathia and the Rocky side of this game.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I actually have some interest on, fantasy draft at Sabathia. His price tag makes him intriguing at $16,400. He's in that same price range as Robbie Ray and McCullers, and I think I like CC Sabathia's spot better than I like Robbie Ray and McCullers' spot.
Yeah, I guess Sabathia versus McCullers, and even on DraftKings, they're about the same price. I think that's going to be a spot where everyone's going to be using McCullers. Mm-hmm. And yeah, if he's priced down in that range, I think that's reasonable to consider him.
Yeah, just comparing the matchups, the Angels don't strike out a lot. Rockies strike out about 23.5% of the time against lefties. So it's an interesting spot. Will CC Sabathia continue? Is what you need to think to yourself.
Yeah, I was thinking FanDuel when I was saying you don't use Sabathia on a one pitcher site. You can't, but yeah, on a 2-pitcher site, it's not out of the question at all.
Yeah, Jake Arrieta and Noah Syndergaard are on the hill. You don't have to use CC Sabathia on a one-pitcher site, that's for sure. Speaking of Noah Syndergaard, Kansas City at New York, Syndergaard, Danny Duffy, it didn't sound like it was anything injury-related. It sounded like the Mets just had the pitching rotation listed wrong, and that's why Syndergaard's pitching today instead of Tuesday.
Yeah, I unless we hear something funny, I think everything is just normal, and if you were going to use him yesterday, you should use him today for the same reasons.
And let's, I get to do a happy dance, Dave. Travis d'Arnaud is finally back. I know I don't have to worry about Rivera catching for Syndergaard. Happy dance is happening. Expect some really good numbers for Syndergaard and Jake DeGrom coming here over the next month. Yeah,
so the people listening to the podcast can't see, like Steve and I are actually, on chat doing this. He is dancing right now, and he is really getting after it. He is fired up.
Had to mute the mic so I could really dance around. So let's talk Syndergaard here. It's not the most ideal matchup against Kansas City, but his price tag on FanDuel comparing him to Arrieta in the matchup, I think Syndergaard's the way that you want to go here.
Yeah, you really have to. What I said about him yesterday is you can make a very strong case that he's the second best pitcher in the league right now behind Kershaw. You can make that case for Arrieta too, I suppose. But Syndergaard is not walking anybody. He's getting 53% ground balls. His strikeout rate and his swinging strike rate are just elite. He's got a high floor and pretty much unlimited upside. And the Royals just aren't who we remember them being last year. They're basically a middle of the road offense against righties, and they lose the DH, day game after night game. I really think everything lines up really well for Syndergaard. It's probably ends up being a plus that he got moved till today.
Yeah, just so many options, on Tuesday night that we could choose from, without results, factoring into what happened. Syndergaard in this spot, just, it's an excellent spot for him. Danny Duffy, on the other hand, any interest in Duffy here?
Yeah. He's very price dependent with Duffy, but he's starting to show that upside that we thought he had a couple of years ago. His strikeout rate, his swinging strike rate jumps off the page right now. Again, small sample size because he hasn't pitched all year, but 16.4% swinging strikes is crazy elite. He's got low walks. He's striking guys out. The innings are probably the biggest question with Duffy. He's thrown 6 innings a few times, but he's really a 5 or 6 inning guy right now. They're still kind of in the process of stretching him out, and they've got a bullpen behind him. So it's tough to use him knowing the other guys on the mound, but where he's priced down, you can beat this Mets team, especially a lefty. And he's showing some really great stuff. So I don't mind him at all.
I think he's really sneaky. 6-game slate. I don't see anybody using him here. Everybody's going to be paying up. I feel like he's a really sneaky option. Like, the Mets strike out a ton against left-handed pitching. I think it's a little over 25%. Their best hitter against lefty is probably David Wright, who's on the DL, and Cespedes. Yeah, he has the splits advantage, but Cespedes hits right-handed pitching better than he hits lefties. So I think this is a really good spot for Duffy. I just worry about his chances to get the win because, with Syndergaard being opposite of him, the one thing that we got to always say anytime we talk about Kansas City pitching, they have the best bullpen in baseball behind, their starting pitchers.
Yeah, a lot of things line up well for Kansas City. They have good defense as well. And his price range, it depends again on what site you're on, but on a site like on DraftKings where he's 7,400, that's probably too cheap for the way he's pitching with this matchup. Gives you some upside. Again, he's another guy on a one-pitcher site. It's going to be really tough not to use one of those top guys. But I think you could still make the case. I mean, Duffy's struck out, 10 guys 2 starts ago, 9 guys a start before that. So if you can go 6 innings and get 8 or 9 strikeouts, you can win with that.
Let's move on to the bats here in this game. Honestly, nothing at all stands out to me here.
Yeah, I think it's a complete avoid. I mean, you'd have to be just making a lot of lineups and just for the sake of being contrarian for contrarian's sake to play this game. I don't see much reason behind it.
Yeah, even being contrarian, like there's a difference between being contrarian and donating money. And if you stack this game, you're probably going to end up donating money on this slate. So I think I'm with you, Dave. I think this is a game I'm going to really just kind of stay away from.
Yeah, it's pitching or nothing.
Angels at Houston taking on the Astros. Matt Schumacher against Lance McCullers. Another game with 2 really decent pitchers. Has Schumacher caught your eye, and do you think that what we're seeing is legit?
I do think it's pretty legit. Like, he showed this same kind of stretch back at the end of 2014 when he has his splitter working, it's really pretty unhittable. And I'm not sure that people really realize how unbelievable he's been. The last 6 starts, he has 55 strikeouts and 2 walks. That's Kershaw-esque numbers. That's unbelievable. You can't do that by accident. There's no fluke in those kind of numbers over a 6-game stretch. Now he's always given up home runs, and you could certainly see Houston getting a hold of a couple. But bottom line is hot streaks for pitchers are a thing. And this guy is hot. I mean, 55-2 strikeouts to walks, that's pretty much unheard of. So I think you've got to consider him.
Yeah, and an Astros team that we love to pick on with strikeout pitchers because they strike out a ton or they hit you hard. So boomer bust type play, I like it. Honestly, being a guy that, played baseball for a long time and just around baseball so much, this guy got sent down to the minors, and it might have been a wake-up call for him. Like, hey, I need to get my stuff in gear here, and I need to, show what I'm capable of. This guy, I think it was 2014, where Schumacher was a guy that was just really dominant, and he's really starting to show that same type of upside here. I think he's a great tournament option on FanDuel and on two pitcher sites.
Yeah, I agree. He's just he's one of my favorite guys right now, just the way he's pitching. And I just think it's real. I don't see any reason to think this isn't real with these strikeouts and walks.
I like Lance McCullers. I talk about his knuckle curve all the time. I think he has the second best curveball in baseball behind Aaron Nola. I'm a real big fan of McCullers, but the Angels just don't strike out. I've totally given up on taking pitchers against the Angels. I like McCullers. I'm not going to pick on him here with hitters, but I'm not going to pitch him against the Angels. Yeah,
I'm worried about how many walks he's been throwing up there.
Yeah,
it's pretty ugly if you look at that game log: 3, 4, 3, 4, 6, 3 for walks per game. There's something wrong. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say he's still hurt, but he's not all the way back. Like, he's not doing what he did last year. So I'm definitely not considering him as a pitcher to use. Like you said, the Angels don't strike out, and I don't feel like he is up to what we're expecting out of him yet. I still think he'll get there, but right now it's not there. He is getting the strikeouts, but he's at a 14% walk rate, and certainly it's not going to stay that high. But until it comes down, I just can't make a case for using him.
Do you think this might be like a Dice K mentality here? Dice K, a guy that came over from overseas, really strikeout minded. And when we think McCullers, I like the way that he attacks hitters, and I think the walks are generated because he's trying to strike out every batter that comes up to the plate.
Yeah, it's odd when you see a guy with high strikeouts and high walks. Like, he's got 27, almost 28% strikeout rate with the high walks. So yeah, clearly that's what he's trying to do. That also can kind of hurt his innings. I mean, he has thrown 7 innings a couple of times. But when you're throwing a lot of pitches because you're striking guys out and walking guys, it makes it tough to go deep too. He certainly has that kind of stuff to put up an elite start at any time. But until we see it a couple of times, I just can't go there.
This is one game we definitely want to see what Kevin Roth has to say. I know they have the roof, so I'm guessing going to be fine. Just thought of that, so I'll shut up now. Any bats that you want here? It's a good hitter's ballpark, but I respect these pitchers, maybe tournament.
Yeah, you can certainly say Schumacher's going to give up a home run. Do you want to try to pick the guy who's going to get it? I don't think I do. But if you do, by all means, take a Springer or a Gaddis or a Rasmus and just say, I'm going to pick that one home run, and I'll be happy when I do. For me, I think I would be okay playing an Angels bat or two, but I'm not excited about it because you're basically hoping for a walk. And McCullers is getting a ton of ground balls when they do get hit. So that's not super exciting, and the Angels just don't have those kind of bats that you want to get excited about. It's not as bad as the Kansas City and the Mets game, but again, it's another game. I just don't know why you would really look at a lot of bats here.
Rasmus is the one guy that really stands out to me as a one-off tournament play. If I had to pinpoint one guy that I would think that would have the best chance to take Schumacher deep, I would say Colby Rasmus. I'm really not going to even play him really heavily just because, I just don't like it. And on the other side, I feel like Mike Trout's always in play. I don't care who he faces. And then Cole Calhoun, I think, would be an interesting tournament play. But there's better spots. There's a game that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes that we're just going to tell you to take as many bats as you can.
Yes, I agree. There'll be a home run in this game, but it's pretty hard to find who it's going to be.
St. Louis at Chicago taking on the Cubs. Jake Arrieta, Michael Wacha. What's your thoughts here on Arrieta?
So it's very interesting that I feel like I started writing my article for today, and I wrote that Arrieta is like getting his revenge on DFS analysts who call him a better real life pitcher than a fantasy pitcher by getting these double-digit strikeouts in 2 of the last 3 games. And I think the very best pitchers, of which certainly Arrieta is one of the very best pitchers, they can basically do whatever they want whenever they want. Like, he's that good that if he decides, I'm going to strike out a dozen guys today, he can just do it. But that's not really his game. He still is the guy who gets ground balls and soft contact. But because of what he's shown these last couple of games, we know that's there. So I'm fine paying up for him, given that we know he's got a high floor because he's just a great pitcher. And that strikeout ability is in him if he decides to bring it out again, because he's just that good of a pitcher. That being said, I'm going to continue to expect him to be the guy who has a very good but not elite strikeout rate and just takes the ground balls and the soft contact. And again, will be slightly better in real life than in fantasy, even though he's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, the problem here, and I might be looking into it too much here because, whenever you have an elite pitcher, but the Cardinals are one of the best teams in baseball against right-handed pitching this season. I don't think we can actually overlook that. They're a hard team to just face. Not saying that I'm going to fade Arrieta. I just feel like if there was a spot to avoid him at his high price tag, this would be a good spot. Especially, there's supposed to be a lot of scattered thunderstorms and showers. If we get anything like that, it's just, it's too risky to see him go out and throw 3 innings, get a delay, and then get pulled at his high price tag.
Yeah, I mean, there's no argument really that he's a better play than Syndergaard when you're talking about an ace. And again, yeah, it would be dumb to tell someone not to play Arrieta because he's just fantastic.
Of course.
But I think Syndergaard's the better play, and then I think you can probably get similar upside by going down to Shoemaker, even going points per dollar, going down to a Duffy or a Conley, some of these other guys. Like there's just other ways to go, even though he's just so great.
Now, Michael Wacha, this guy's interesting because I feel like the regression is finally starting to hit him. We've seen it over the last few years, his ERA much lower than his Sierra and XFIP. The contact rate's going up, the swinging strike rate is going down, and the soft contact is going down as well. Is this a spot that we might look at the Cubs 6-game slate, probably going to be under-owned because of their price? And Wacha's a name that I feel like people are not going to pick on.
Yeah, I do think the Cubs are a good spot because, Wacha's, moderately turned things around. His last 4 starts have been considerably better than how he started the year. So I think some people might glance at the game log and say, yeah, Wacha's fine. And he is fine. He's not as bad as he looked at the beginning, but really he's kind of somewhere in between. And today, there's just not a lot of offensive spots. And this Cubs team has just some really great hitters. So I'm very happy playing Cubs bats. I think the lefties, certainly, Wacha's been much worse against lefties in terms of hard contact, line drives, fly balls, lower strikeouts. So I'm definitely would start with the lefties. But yeah, you can play Cubs for sure.
Yeah, I like the lefties as well. Chris Bryant, always a really solid, upside play. Doesn't matter who's pitching. It seems like this guy always has that home run pop, and that's always what we like to see in tournament plays.
I will say, something that jumped out in game logs is that Wacha's last start against Texas was probably his best start of the year, and he did have his highest fastball velocity by like over a mile an hour better than the rest of the year. So, maybe he's at a 1-game sample size of a mile an hour. It's pretty hard to put too much into that. But, it's relevant, and he also kind of changed his pitches up a little bit, throwing more changeups. So I'm not like completely down on Waka, but like we're saying, on a day like today with the Cubs lefties, that is one of the better spots that you can find on the board.
It's just an ugly slate for hitters. I think I started the podcast with saying that this is a great day for pitching, but hitters, on the other hand, you're going to have to take some chances. Milwaukee at Oakland, Junior Guerrera against Daniel Medgen. This game, we might be able to get some hitters here, even though it is O.co. Is this a spot that we can actually, maybe target some of these bets?
Yeah, this is definitely the unknown game. Like Mengden, we have barely seen any of. Guerra, he's got 9 career starts, so we're still kind of guessing on both of these guys. And they both look kind of okay. These do not look like terrible pitchers by any stretch, but you got to find bats somewhere. For the Oakland, I guess I would look at the hard contact that Guerra's given up and say where they're low priced. They do have several low priced bats on most sites. I think that's probably a good spot to kind of just weave in some salary savings bats where you need them. I don't see this as a, stack it up kind of a spot, but they've got some, solid hitters that are cheap on different sites. So that's how I would view the Oakland side. And then for Milwaukee, we can't really look at what Mengden's done in 12 career innings. So I would probably just say, if you want to stack the Brewers and just hope that this guy doesn't do anything or, kind of gets a little nervous in front of the home crowd and gets pulled early. But he looks like he should be a reasonable pitcher. So I'm not super excited about playing it at all. It's just a case of where else are we going to find all these bats today? Maybe we should use a couple here.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. That last sentence just sums it up. So every day I give out 3 guys that I like on Fantasy Draft that's under 8K. Finally, here a game that I feel really comfortable with a guy, and it's Scooter Gennett, 6,600 over on Fantasy Draft. Really, really good, solid value here. Going to be batting in that 2 spot. Like you said, it's a 12-inning sample size. Everything I'm seeing in the minors, this guy's definitely hittable. So I think Scooter Gennett's in a really good spot here in that 2 spot.
Yeah, that's a very nice price. Yeah. He does get, that bump, that lineup bump against righties most days. So yeah, where he's that price makes him a great play. I mean, you've got to find a couple of cheap guys. So definitely I like that. I don't know that you can target any other individual Brewers bats. Like, I don't know what Mengden is going to do to say, hey, we should use this guy or that guy. So I would either look for something cheap or just say I'm going to stack it and see what happens.
Yeah, I like that call. I like Chris Davis on the other side here for Oakland. I think he has a ton of upside in this game. You mentioned the hard contact rate. Davis, a guy that's been hitting the ball hard. When he squares it up, it seems to be finding over the fence. And he's a guy that we know can hit out of O.co. I think Chris Davis, an excellent tournament play.
Yeah, I'm willing. Oakland's got him and Valencia. I'm willing to take those guys just about any time against just about anybody. When those guys hit the ball, it goes really super far. So I don't mind that at all.
Valencia, a guy that I feel like people overlook, and this guy's hitting over 325 this year. Like, he's legitly finally, an option that we can look at against righties. We've targeted him so much against lefties in the past. I feel like this is a season we can, just roll him out. Like you said, he's hitting the ball hard. It doesn't matter what type of pitcher he hits.
He's been so good. Yeah, he's quickly becoming one of my favorite players. I mean, the numbers against lefties are just otherworldly, like better than Josh Donaldson type numbers. I mean, just crazy. But yeah, against righties, he's very good. So he's on my list every day.
Arizona at Toronto. Last game here, the 6th game, early slate. J-Happ against Robbie Ray. Finally, Dave,
Yes.
finally we get to a game where I don't like either one of the pitchers. I'm guessing you're the same here.
I am. That is a good call.
Yeah, Jay Happ, a guy that's been serviceable this year. I think that we can say that and, be okay with it. But Arizona Diamondbacks, they're second in baseball in WRC plus against left-handed pitching this season. They've shown a lot of pop against lefties. And then you look at their lineup and you're like, where is it coming from? And, honestly, it just comes from whoever they plug in there against left-handed pitching.
Yeah, they have so many random pieces and because they all don't play, they're also cheap on most sites. Like, you never know who's going to hit 2 or 5 or 6. I mean, some days it's Goslin and some days it's Herman, and like some days Ricky Weeks is hitting cleanup and some days it's Drury. Like, it's just all over the place, but they all seem to hit. And then, of course, the guys who are always in there, the Goldschmidt, the Tomas, Peter O'Brien's playing fantastic, Segura, like everyone can hit. And this is, the obvious spot for offense with both of these teams. But I think Toronto will be much higher owned and should be. So I would kind of probably lean towards the Diamondback side. I mean, pretty much everyone in this lineup can hit a homer. Castillo, Goldschmidt, even the lefties, I don't even hate playing. But you got to watch the lineup because you have no idea how they're going to set it.
Like I said, every day I give out 3 guys. The last 2 guys here on Fantasy Draft, I talked about him yesterday in the podcast with Derek Carty. Peter O'Brien, just a guy that I love. This guy has raw power. He's 5,700. I expect him to be in that 5 or 6 spot here. Great spot for him. And then the next guy, 7,200, is Devin Travis. He hit in that 2 spot here with Jose Bautista out. I don't expect them to really change the lineup here.
Yeah, I think that's he's the guy who's benefited from Bautista being gone, and if he's up there, he's still a great play. Yeah, I think this Toronto team will be the chalk for good reason, and they should be. Robbie Ray is getting strikeouts, but that's kind of it. He's walking a lot of righties, and he's giving up a lot of hard contact. It seems like he should be in big trouble here. So you can load up the obvious guys, certainly with your Donaldson and Encarnacion type players. Tulo's back, Russell Martin, Pilar you can play, and like you said, Devin Travis, Smoke. You can really play the whole team.
What's your thoughts on this little hot streak that Tomas seems to be on, showing some power here over the last week?
Yeah, he's real. I mean, he was supposed to have this kind of power, so it's not really a surprise. I think it's pretty real with him. I think he's a legit power hitter. Yeah,
this is a game that you want to just build your lineups around. Plug in your pitcher, plug in what you like here in this game. Any of the righties from both sides, and if you want to be contrarian, take some of the lefties. But it's just an excellent spot to target hitters here.
Yeah, I think the one spot I would point out is Saunders. He's actually been really good against lefties. I'm not sure I expect it to continue, but nobody's going to play a lefty on lefty when you can load up your entire lineup with righties from this game. So if you want to still be in it and be a little different in a tournament, I would not mind going with Saunders. He's been like tremendous against lefties, even though I think there's some fluke involved. It's still pretty hard to argue with the numbers.
Yeah, definitely agree. That's going to wrap it up here for this 6-game early slate, Dave. Let's play some home run derby, my favorite part of the podcast. Split with Derek yesterday, so let's see what me and you can put together here. I'll let you lead it off.
Can I use the same guy 2 days in a row? Because yesterday on Grinders Live, I took Peter O'Brien, and he homered. And I feel like I owe it to him to take another one.
He was the first guy I had written on my list.
I knew I had to get that out of the way quick.
I'll let you have him. That's, the part of letting you go first here. I love the call. I think this guy just has raw power. But since you did that, I'm going to go super chalky on you here, and I'm going to go Donaldson. I'm going back to back here because I took him yesterday. And
Gutsy call. Gutsy call.
Yeah, that's a hot take.
That is a hot take. Okay, so let's not use. I will try not to use entirely this game, although that would actually be the way to play. I think we'll go. I see. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to play Brian McCann, but I'm not sure that he's going to be in the lineup. He'll probably still homer.
Here's the thing. I'll let you take a fourth guy when we're done, and if McCann doesn't play, I'll let you have him.
All right.
I'm going to go Chris Davis with a K here. I love this spot for him.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Boy, it's ugly. Yeah, I'm gonna go with somebody good who's good at hitting the baseball. I think. You know who's good at hitting the baseball is Anthony Rizzo.
Anthony Rizzo is good at hitting the baseball. I definitely agree there. I was gonna go super chalky with this last one and take Goldschmidt. I'm not gonna do that, and I'm gonna go really contrarian and take Colby Rasmus.
There you go. I like it. Boy, it would be mean if I took Goldschmidt now. I won't do it.
Instant dog. Super chalk.
Yeah. Wow. There's just so few spots. As I'm looking at this sheet, I'm like, what can we do besides more Toronto, Arizona bats? So I think it's legit if I go Michael Saunders because since it's lefty, that's not really cheating.
That's not cheating, and I think we did a good job kind of being different and not going Arizona, Toronto. Obviously, me and you both like Arizona, Toronto a lot. This one's going to be a little bit funner, though. If you had to pick one pitcher at the end of the day that was going to pick up a win, not named Jake Arrieta and Noah Syndergaard, who would you have?
For the win.
Just the win. Doesn't have to even score the most fantasy points.
That's really a fantastic question.
I love stumping my co-host every day.
See, now I would like to say that I did not look at the lines, and I'm not going to look at them now.
That's good. That's what I like. Gut instinct.
List, and boy, they all look pretty toss up. I'm gonna say Hap. I'm gonna say Toronto just goes all over Robbie Ray.
I like it. I'm going to go CC Sabathia. I actually think the Yankees will score enough to get CC Sabathia the win. Like you mentioned, hasn't given up more than 2 runs since April, right?
Yeah, that was the other spot I was looking at. I think that's just a better spot for the Yankees with the way the lineup's set up.
I will say one thing, though. I don't think anybody is a lock for a win, even Noah Syndergaard on this slate.
Yeah, I agree. I would definitely say nobody should be a lock. I would put Arrieta at the top, I think, but I don't know. Yeah, it's a good slate.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun slate. Little 6-game action here. Dave, it's always a pleasure to have you on, my friend. Before we get out of here, we got a minute or two. Tell me about this coaching gig that you've been doing here for Roto-Grinders.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. I've been taking people from people who are basically beginners to some really, high level, what I would call expert players, and going through mostly what we've been going through is the process of, how to break down a slate, kind of digging into some stats, because that's sort of my expertise is the actual baseball side of things. And we've got some other coaches on board now that can do other lineup building things. So I'm sort of taking people through how do I break down a slate? What numbers am I looking at, and how am I looking at them and sorting them? And then how do I, translate that into setting lineups for either cash games or tournaments? Mostly talking tournaments. But I've really enjoyed it. It's I love the being an analyst and writing the articles and doing the shows. But to get one-on-one and be able to really answer the questions that people want to know has been fun, and I hope to keep doing a lot of that.
Yeah, man. Just everything that I've been seeing feedback-wise, you've been doing an excellent job. So kudos to you. If you guys are interested in hearing and, getting a session with Dave, just contact him through the PM system here on Roto-Grinders. I'm sure he'll answer any type of questions that you guys have about that. And I say it all the time. I say it probably more than any person that I know in this industry. Daily routine is single-handedly the most important part of fantasy, and people just don't understand that. But daily routine as far as researching, doing the slate, doing the same routine every day, and game selection in your routine is just so important.
Yeah, it really is. When there's games every day, and you don't have unlimited time, when you can have a streamlined process, it helps tremendously.
Last thing before we get out of here, if you guys haven't checked out our sponsor, FantasyDraft.com, if you like the podcast, make sure you head on over there. Use promo code Grinders. That is just Grinders. It's not Roto Grinders. That way you get incentives here at Roto Grinders for Fantasy Draft for free for a year, which is $180 value, and you get a 100% deposit bonus up to $600. Check them out. Check out Dan's Fantasy Fix today for the single entry thing with the FanDuel. And at the top of the Roto Grinders page, make sure you guys check out the King of Summer contest, which is really awesome. Make sure you guys are playing in that. That's going to wrap it up here for the Wednesday slate. We'll be back on Thursday with Dean, and good luck in your contest tonight. We'll see you then.